Yeah, this is the Shacknews Award for Best Graphics of 2020.
Fucking eyes are killing me. Burning. I'm gonna go off cam for a sec.
Best graphics, Microsoft Flight Simulator. The game looks amazing.
Nothing really made me want to get a high-end PC quite like that game.
Yeah. A lot of us put our computers on the line to try and run that game some months back.
It's just staggering. And the fact that I know it's not 100% accurate, but like I flew over Canton and that was just kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
To not be like, this is Canton in the video game. Like, no, this is Canton.
Yeah, like we took
like
off.
Canton-ass Canton.
We took off from Canton Akron Airport and we flew to Cleveland. We were like over 77 North. You could like point out landmarks, you know?
Yeah, it was, and they looked good.
And if you watched Jan's stream when he flew over Manhattan, it really is, it's a really damn impressive game. And the scale of it is staggering.
Yep.
It can get, and this is understandable. This isn't to take away from it because I agree. Now, because in an airplane, you probably shouldn't be like driving up to something's front door in an airplane. But if you do get up close and personal with some things, I mean, they can look a little bit. It can look pretty.
Little Google
It's
Map-ish.
not the game's fault. Like they can't render everybody's front door. You know what I mean? Like that's not possible. So. When you're actually flying in a plane and looking at things from the distance that you're designed to look at them from, even the airports that you're designed to take off from, like it's absolutely a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
If you try to land in your own backyard, it might look a little weird. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's a very gorgeous recreation.
It's the new status symbol for PC, for like if you're looking for like PC graphics. That's your new bar. Like the bar was Crysis. Then it was The Witcher. Now it's Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Chris, what was the bottleneck when it came to Flight Sim? Is it processor?
As
or
of right
GPU?
now, the game can't properly use the power in CPUs, and it has to be updated. They claim they're working on it and hope to have an update at some point in the next year.
So it's like, this isn't even its final form.
It's not going to look any different, but
it's going to run better.
Smoother.
I'm intrigued.
To me, that's like part of it, though, Krabs. Like,
It really is.
You could look good, but if your frame rate sucks, I'm not going to play your game.
Getting into next year, I'm really intrigued to see how it looks on Series X. Like that's just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna do this now.
Yeah,
okay, let's see how this looks. Let's see if we can pull this off.
For that console.
Cue that Jurassic Park clip again.
It's not gonna.
It's gonna be 14, 40, 30 on medium.
See, and that's something that
very bad
about Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's just, and this is like, I'm not even talking about like just the fact of high-end tech. I'm talking about like, there's a lot you have to do to bring the best out of that game. And this is just from listening to y'all talk about it, from listening to Chris talk about it, from listening to Oscar talk about it, Bill, Jan. Just like, that does speak to a high-end cap of it, but there's also a lot that goes into the technical difficulties of making it not only look good, but play smooth. And that kind of bothers me to a degree that you don't have to do with the couple of the games that I kind of look to as.
I mean, you can put it on medium though. It still looks better than 98% of everything else. It's just you don't have the bragging rights if I'm running it at 4K.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use a $150 GPU and run the game at 60 FPS. That's not really an issue. It's just, you know, how insane do you want to take it?
Well, I took it pretty insane on my PC at the office, and it's gorgeous.
I think the scalability is so important, though. Like, I've been tooting Source's horn for years. That, you know, even back in 2004, Half-Life 2 still looked good on a low-end PC. And I think the fact that Flight Simulator is so scalable that it can still run at 60 FPS and look pretty sharp on a mid-range PC is a point in its favor.
And most flight sims struggle to hit 30, just as the way the games have always been. And this one is much like that. There's a lot going on, and usually getting to 30 is all they really care about, because admittedly you don't really need the input latency reduction or the responsiveness like you would in other types of games for flying. I think I would add an exception for the stunt plane, but like you're not going to be flying a 787 and your experience between 60 and 30 is not going to be materially different. Now, that's not the case if you were to play in VR, which I believe is coming to the game or is in alpha right now, but that's kind of a different animal.
Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely some of the most visually stunning graphics I've seen this year. I love flying at night in the game. It's really damn impressive.
Yeah, updated Tokyo is a treat.
Mm-hmm.
Flying at night's actually kind of scary too. Like,
it is,
because like you're assuming that everything's going well, but it's all your instruments, and then you see like the visual of like you're passing over a city, and you're like, I am reasonably far away from the ground. Success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. I need to play more of that game. I haven't landed successfully yet, but I do enjoy flying. What else we got on this list of nominees?
Half-Life Alyx.
Oh yeah.
Unless you want to speak to that, Asif, I'll chime in on it.
Go for it.
I'm just consistently impressed at. So Half-Life has always been pretty linear, but even in like pure conventional FPS, you could go poke around and look at things. Half-Life Alyx is even more so. Like the sheer density of object types in that game, different boxes, different crates, different soda cans, different glass bottles. We talked about this in the Best Water Award, but like I still, every glass bottle I get, I love to just pick it up and take a look at the liquid as it sloshes around. And I feel like those physics are tied to the graphics. It has to look convincing when that water is sloshing around, and everything graphically in that game just immerses me even further. I remember the first time I played Half-Life 2 on a high-powered PC, which I happened to have when the game came out. I just remember looking at it thinking, graphics will never get better than this, or more realistic than this. And I feel like Half-Life Alyx is the next step, not just in Half-Life, but there's so much verisimilitude to the world already. And the added element is that you're in it, and like I pick up crates and like look at the bottom, I turn them around, just look at every side, it uses all three dimensions so well.
I think during the stream yesterday night, I showcased a lot of the textures that they use in the game, and just how environmental design in that game, it really showcases the graphics. It's like, you can make a hallway in any game, but the amount of time they put into the graphical design of just a hallway that you're going to be in for 30 seconds.
And like those hallways feel lived in, right? Like
everything feels like someone's been there before, or it's a living thing. The city that you're in is alive.
Yeah, and more than just like dirty and scuffed. Like, no,
it's not just like it's like you said, being able to grab a box off a shelf, being able to look at the bottom of the box, see that it's scratched, and not every box has the same scratch texture. Like, it's these little details in Half-Life Alyx that just constantly impress me. And last night when I was in it, I was just like, witness this, look at this, like, wow, like this hasn't been done before. So I think that it's easy to look at a lot of what they've done and say it's incremental, or that it was inevitable. But like you said, David, this is a game that I think you're going to look back at the same way you look back at Half-Life 2 right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, other people have said, not just in our deliberations, but at the internet at large, like, oh, I just want to play this like a regular FPS. I don't think this game would be nearly as striking, because why would I care about looking at the bottom of a crate? The fact that I'm encouraged to do that, because it feels so natural and because there's so much diversity in textures and object types, just is that next step of immersion that I really appreciate.
I'm glad you brought up immersion, because there's two things in VR that you have to succeed at, or else your game's gonna suck: presence and immersion. And presence, feeling like you're in the game, and immersion, just being surrounded by a world. and from the design of the enemies, the environments, the levels, random things, even the hands, your hand presence, the way that your hands look with the Russells on, the way that the Russells even look, or those holographic puzzles that you have to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So many of those things would not have been as fun in a flat screen environment. I agree with you there. And that's where it shines. And last night I was playing at 120 hertz in a VR headset. You know, like, that doesn't, like, you have to give them credit for running a VR game at 120 hertz. Like, that's not common.
No, it's not common. There's something I tried to do
to the headset, not the game. There's plenty of games that go up there.
What games on VR go up there?
Any of them with an unlocked frame rate.
Okay, but like, this is the, I guess yeah, I'm giving credit to the Valve Index more than I am Half-Life. It's the best showcase of that I've ever seen in VR.
Yeah, it's the first VR game that's got like AAA production value graphics that you would see in shooters of the last several years, this most recent generation, where most things are several steps back. Another big VR game this year was the Medal of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
And the gameplay and stuff was nice, but there were so many parts of it that looked like, higher end PlayStation 2 style textures and models and all that. And
I think that's a really good point, is that we see a lot of very low poly, low texture VR games.
But
this is not that.
The developers also do that because they're trying to reach the widest possible audience, and they wanted to work on the most possible headsets.
Mm-hmm. There's that too, but there's that too, but also I've spoken with so many developers who talked about the move to 3D. Like I talked to Jane Jensen several years ago about Gabriel Knight 3, and she said one of the most difficult things for the art team to adapt to was having to, since you were given a free roaming camera, she was like, oh, we have to render the underside of desks now and the backs of doors, because what if the camera goes back there? What if the players want to look back there? And I feel like a lot of times maybe developers, I don't want to say skimp on details, but they don't feel the need to, go to 11 on everything, because like, you're not going to go over here because the game doesn't let you go over here. And it's just another credit to Half-Life Alyx that because it has AAA production values, and because Half-Life games have always done a really great job at hiding the so-called invisible walls of boundaries, it just makes the world feel that much more real and the graphics that much more impressive to me.
Yeah, like, on the matter of like scalability, I do want to bring up Ghost of Tsushima. I thought this was a game like. So when I started playing Ghost of Tsushima, I didn't have a PS5. I played it on a base PS4. That game is still gorgeous. It still had no issues with like stutter. I don't think I ever ran into technical issues, and like it's like beyond loading times. Like I never noticed anything that would like deter me from being immersed in that world. And to that effect, like the light off the grass, the light coming through like tree lines, the blood dispersed, like at the beach when you see the waves coming
the blood in the water,
hitting the bodies, and then blood coming off the bodies and dispersing into the ocean. Like, these are things that like it did on a base PS4, and then you put it on a PS5 and it's like it makes the frame rate smoother, and you get high dynamic range, you get a performance versus fidelity mode or whatever, but like it just took it and pushed it that much further. And I love the games, like I love the game's technical aspects in that way. It didn't hit me as like the most artistic thing for reasons that I feel like it's not the stylistic things of Ghost of Tsushima that strike me. It's the ability to convey the world at a scalable level, whether you're on a base PS4 or a PS5, and do it smoothly at all times.
Yeah, I have a basic PS4, and I thought the game ran pretty well and looked stunning. I was really impressed with a lot of these late gen PS4 games this year, with The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima and Final Fantasy 7. All of them look very good on PS4. We tend to get these in those last years of a console generation. So yeah, very, very good looking game. Anyone else got anything else they want to nominate?
I think we covered the.
Who among you nominated Cyberjunk?
I didn't put it in there.
Crabs?
I think Crabs did. But I can also speak a little bit to Cyberpunk. I think for me, the thing that makes Cyberpunk stand out, and I think it makes The Last of Us 2 stand out well above Flight Simulator for me, is that while very pretty, Flight Simulator is a game that you appreciate the beauty from afar. Like the world and everything, it's not something you can get up close and personal with and experience the same beauty. Whereas with The Last of Us 2 and absolutely with Cyberpunk, the real beauty of those graphics and everything is right there in front of you. And I'm not saying that the game doesn't have its issues, and obviously on console you're probably not getting the same experience.
Yeah, it seems kind of dubious to give Best Graphics of 2020 award to a game where several platforms have massive amounts of refunds being requested because
you're also offering to give it to a
looks.
game that's not even available on those other platforms. So
yeah, I know, but they didn't. Microsoft Flight Simulator didn't have the gall to ship garbage.
So this actually raises an interesting theme. Like, if a game runs well on PC and garbage on console, like, do you combine that? Do you weigh it? Like, how do you judge that? You know what I mean?
I'm certainly weighing it.
I will say that
because look at how good Final Fantasy VII Remake looks on PS4.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
No. I will say that the case against Cyberpunk as far as it running on last gen consoles is true. I play it on my PS5, which Chris told me the game treats it like a PS4 Pro. I haven't had any issues, but I can't ignore the fact that this is a game released announced for last gen, I think, and
yes.
It just barely runs on it. And yeah, it's a tough case to make, I would say.
Yeah, this was a game that was announced for these consoles.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this came up, at the last second or something.
Right.
But when you look at how the game runs, they clearly prioritized high-end specs over the larger addressable market. And then they did shit like not allow people to include gameplay of console in their review coverage before the game launched.
That stuff is really dangerous.
I think this is a dangerous thing to want to reward.
They weren't allowed to use their own footage at all, and there were no console.
No console review keys were even sent out, and you weren't allowed to use your own preview or review gameplay footage.
I think my problem with
they did a lot to hide the fact that this game wasn't going to run as well as advertised.
And I'm not discounting that, but I think the problem that a lot of people, including us here at Shacknews, are having with Cyberpunk is we're not looking at the product, the developers' work. We're looking at the decisions made by the suits, and in turn we're hurt. We're
every single game is
insulting,
determined by suits.
But
Nintendo has suits. They've never shipped something in this piss poor of a state.
I see what you're saying, Josh, and I think there's merit to that, but the game is what it is, and you have to judge that,
But
I am judging that.
We didn't throw the hammer down on other games that have released just even worse piss poor shit, like say the PS3 and 360 versions of Shadow of Mordor. Nobody gives a shit about that, even though those ran under 10 FPS.
That game didn't use graphics.
Yeah, but everyone talked about how great the game was, even though the versions they shipped there were literally less playable than the stuff we've gotten with Cyberpunk, and that had won Game of the Year at multiple outlets, I think, including this one.
Shadow of Mordor?
Shadow of Mordor wasn't?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
did not.
I just think that there's a better case to be made for games like The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, I think it's more impressive when you get those games to look good on a PS4.
Well, then you're arguing for optimization over which game has the best graphics. It does.
I'm just saying, best graphics. The fact that you're able to ship something that looks as good as The Last of Us 2 on a base PS4 console the same year that Cyberpunk looks like it does. I'm just saying, like, there's 2 games you can put side by side and look at them objectively and say they're both running on this.
You could say 3, like Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII, and Last of Us 2, all on that base console.
I would argue that this isn't a question of this is the developers running out of time to optimize. It's not, and shipping this you should not reward this, is my point. You should not give awards out to this just because it runs great on a high spec PC. I'm not saying that it's not the.
Well, then that means every game that's ever been released that didn't run perfectly on lower end hardware should not be celebrated for what is delivered. I mean,
I think there's
what
running.
percent of people get best? What percent of people out there are getting the best graphical performance from Cyberpunk right now?
There's a pretty wide wide gulf between a game shipping perfectly and what Cyberpunk delivered, though.
Yeah,
I'm not looking for perfection.
Yellow background.
But like GTA 5 launched on the original consoles and it ran sub 20 FPS and it looked bad. It was rough. It was damn near unplayable. And
My wish is that
was available, and it's still 9 of 10, 10 of 10.
My wish is that Cyberpunk
is one thing, right? Like, running poorly is one thing, sure, but like there are things that are completely broken about this game graphically. Like there, like no matter what, like characters that don't appear. Like when you were playing, like when I was playing, actually, I had graphical glitches within the first 30 seconds of playing the game. On a PS5, like there's floating ashtrays everywhere, things like that, things that still exist in the world that are completely broken, 100%. No matter how
any of
good
this
your
shit happens
shit is.
in Half-Life Alyx, you guys are gonna shit all over my argument. You guys, if any of this happens in VR, it instantly breaks immersion. But because it only happens to a certain percent of people, who happen to be a large amount of the people who bought the game, right? Well, if you think of addressable market, who exists on this planet? More PS4 owners or more 3080 owners? So the majority of people who are experiencing this game are not having a good experience. That's why you're having Cyberpunk issuing statements every other week about how poorly it's shipped in, the condition. Like,
That's fine. I rescind my nomination. I apologize for bringing it up.
No, I think this conversation needed to be had, but it's not. The game, it did not ship in a condition that deserves an award.
My wish is that, and this is easy to say in hindsight, but I really wish Cyberpunk had just been a PC exclusive. I don't think anybody would have said anything if it was.
I think just bump it, and
it should have been delayed a year.
It's because it's obviously ready for PC. Just release it for PC and then say consoles are coming next year. Like what they did with Disco Elysium.
Not ready for PC. But that's another
in some cases, it's not even ready for PC. It's only ready for high spec PC.
I stand with Krabs. I rescind my nomination, but I'm gonna say this in closing. I think you guys are focusing too much on what's broken when the point of this entire thing here is best graphics. Cyberpunk offers fantastic graphics. Whether it's broken on console, whether it's broken on PC, it doesn't matter. When it's working great, it offers fantastic looking visuals, and that's what this category was supposed to be about. That's why it was brought up, but that's all.
But there's that caveat.
All those other games brought up definitely look better on most people's specs.
It is just it's a high bar to jump, I think. Like, well, when the game works, it looks like this. Like these other games, you don't have to add that caveat.
There's no preface.
Well, then PC games should be disallowed from this, I guess, because not everybody can buy the same video card.
I think it's a challenge that PC games have, but to act like this game just shipped like, oh, it works fine on PC. It doesn't just work. It's not, you can't make a blanket statement that it works fine on any platform. There's so many things wrong with it.
I just want to say really for a second. I've played Cyberpunk on PC. I've got a 2080 Ti and a pretty decent rig. And there are times when it does look fantastic. There are times when it looks fantastic. There are moments when I look at it and I'm like, wow. And then there are moments that I walk through a door and I'm like, okay, there's a graphical glitch, there's a graphical glitch, there's a graphical glitch. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see how that can just be thrown away.
That's my point. And I have the same
works
specs,
perfectly, Bill. It looks amazing. But okay, but it's
same
not
specs, Bill. I have the exact same specs, exact same experience. I'll walk down an alley and I'm like, wow, look at the lighting in this alleyway. This looks really damn impressive. And then I walk into a room and I'm talking to someone and their face shifts like, a foot above their head.
It absolutely was the best experience I've had with ray tracing. I'll say that.
Yeah. If there was a best lighting award, maybe they get it. But it's not consistent enough for me to consider it for this.
And that's kind of my point. It's like I played Ghost of Tsushima on a base PS4. I was like, wow, this is gorgeous. I play it on a PS5, and it's like, wow, this is even now more gorgeous, because that's what it does.
Yeah. And if Ghost of Tsushima somehow ships on PC, I'm sure it'll look great there too.
Well, you said that about Horizon, and
I know, but that was different.
Credit Half-Life Alyx. I got it working on a fucking Oculus.
Valve is a master at that.
Scalability of the Source engine is really damn impressive. TJ.
Valve has been doing this for so long, where they're just able to make their games look gorgeous on any specs. Like I have it used to be a meme. Like they used to make Team Fortress run on a toaster. Like it's that kind of principle.
Let's vote. Unless there's another nominee. I think
let's vote. I'll start off. Half-Life.
Ozzy's on the Half-Life too.
Yeah, for Half-Life as well.
If Half-Life hadn't come out this year, I would have gone Microsoft Flight Simulator, but yeah, Half-Life Alyx for sure. I spend so much time in that game, just like if there's a filing cabinet, I look inside it just for the novelty of looking in it and seeing what's in there. They really should have hit a resin in that porta potty though.
I know. I stuck my head in the toilet.
I saw.
Yeah, you did.
Game of the year.
Yeah.
TJ.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Donovan.
Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Bill.
I couldn't hear you there, Bill.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Bill.
Oh, sorry, Flight Simulator.
Greg.
Half-Life Alyx.
Okay. And Josh.
The Last of Us 2.
Definitely some good graphics there. Chris.
I can't vote for Cyberpunk. I vote for Last of Us 2.
You can vote for Cyberpunk.
Well, I didn't get to make an argument, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter. Just Last of Us 2.
Okay. Blake.
What
Have you not been listening the last 10 minutes?
I know. I said what I was gonna ask what the tallies were, but
Just vote.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Steve's not here. Let's see. 1, 2. 2 for Ghost of Tsushima, 2 for Flight Simulator, 2 for Last of Us 2. I'm gonna vote for Half-Life Alyx. We have 5 for Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx is your best graphics of 2020. Hooray. Praise Gavin.